Hello everyone, my name is Sophia. I'm 29, I work in graphic design. Though most days, I feel more like a backlog receptionist. I attend meetings, deliver proposals, fix problems, and lately I just survive. Maybe that's why this hit me so hard, because when you're so distracted, so wrapped up in your daily routine, you never expect reality itself to turn on you. It happened on a Friday afternoon, just a couple of weeks ago. I was coming home from a long day tired, hungry, in a bad mood. I got off the metro bus and stopped at a store 3 blocks from my apartment. You know, the kind, half OXXO, half supermarket. I've been there so many times, I could find things blindfolded. That day I just wanted a serum, some chips, and something sweet anything to feel less miserable. There were 2 people in line. I got behind them, pulled out my phone, and started scrolling. I was completely absorbed until I heard a door open. Not the front one, the other door, the one that leads to the street. The one nobody ever uses. And for a second, just 1 second, everything stopped. A woman walked in. Light jeans, black t-shirt, gray hoodie, a blue backpack fraying at the side. Just like mine. Same haircut, same bangs, same face. It was me. I froze, my breath caught in my throat. And she froze too. She looked just as terrified as I felt. Her eyes widened like she had seen a ghost me. It was like she couldn't believe I was there, as if I were the anomaly, as if she was the real one, and I was the mistake. Then, just like that, she turned around and walked back out the same door. Gone. I stood there, stunned. Nobody in the store reacted. The people in front of me didn't turn around. The cashier didn't look up. No one seemed to notice, except me. I stepped out of line and walked quickly to the door. I pushed it open, looked out onto the street. Nothing. I walked to the corner, looked up and down the sidewalk. There's nowhere to hide, no alley, no car, no sound of footsteps, no shadow, no her. She was just gone. I walked home in a daze, like I was watching myself from the outside. I didn't buy anything. I barely remember getting inside. When I looked at myself in the mirror, I started to panic. My face, my backpack, my clothes, all mine. But something didn't feel right. There was a hollowness I couldn't explain. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying that moment, her face, my face, the fear, the recognition. Who was she? A ghost? A glitch? A time loop? A moment where space bent in on itself? Was she a version of me from somewhere else? Or was I the version that wasn't supposed to be there? Now, every time I enter a store, I check the glass. I look for reflections that move out of sync. I glance at the security cameras, wondering if she'd be standing behind me. Sometimes I wonder, if I see her again, if I lock eyes with that on me, should I run after her? Or should I let her go? What would you do? Has this happened to anyone else? Because I swear on everything, I know what I saw. And I know it saw me back. Have you ever seen your double? Let us know in the comments. Before she finds you first. Hello, community. My name is Daniel, and I work late shifts at a customer service call center in Mexico City. Most nights, I take the last Metro Home Line 2, Quitla-Huac Station. I've memorized the route like the back of my hand. Same stops, same sounds, same silence. But one night, everything changed. And I'm still trying to understand where I went, or what I saw. It was around 11:15 p.m. when I left work. I was exhausted. I plugged in my headphones and boarded the metro at Hidalgo, like always. I found a window seat, let the music fill my ears. And somewhere along the way, I must have dozed off. When I opened my eyes, the doors had just slammed shut at a station. But something wasn't right. The car was empty. Not just a few passengers completely empty. I sat up, disoriented, rubbing my eyes. I tried to figure out which stop I was at. That's when I noticed. There were no signs. No station name. No map. No voice on the speaker. Just a bench at the end of the platform, cracked tiles and stained walls that looked like they hadn't been touched in decades. and the lights half lit, dim, cold. Not flickering, not off, just wrong. The train doors were wide open, waiting for me. But I didn't move. I stared out the window, hoping, praying to see someone, a janitor, a police officer, a single late-night commuter. But there was nothing. Just an unnatural silence, the kind that presses against your skin like static. And that's when fear settled in. Had I missed my stop? Was I dreaming? Was this train even going in the right direction anymore? I know that metro line, every station, every name, and that one did not exist. It shouldn't exist. And still, the door stayed open, like it was waiting for me to get off. I couldn't. Then, without a sound, the doors closed. The train continued on, and suddenly, I was back. We pulled into Cuatro Caminos like nothing had happened. A few passengers got off. I wanted to ask one of them, "Did you see it too?" But I couldn't speak. Time had shifted. I'd missed several stops. What felt like seconds had been long minutes, and yet I knew I'd been awake. I could have taken the last train back toward Cuitlahua, but I didn't dare. Instead, I ran out of the station, flagged down a taxi. But halfway home, I asked the driver to let me out. I needed to feel air, real air. Cold night air on my face, not recycled train breath in a tunnel that doesn't exist. And I walked home. Since that night, I can't stop thinking about what I saw, what I wasn't supposed to see. My boyfriend says I must have dreamed it. But you know when you're dreaming, and you know when you're not? That place was real. I swear it was. It wasn't a dream, it wasn't sleep paralysis. It wasn't imagination. It was a station that isn't on any map. It had no name. But it was there, and I want to know. Has anyone else ever felt the train stop? Somewhere it shouldn't have? Somewhere in the tunnels beneath Mexico City, where no one ever gets off. If you've seen it, heard about it, felt it, please leave a comment, because I need to know that I wasn't alone. Have you ever taken the last train home and arrived somewhere else? I recently met up with some friends from the test, not all of them, of course. You know how it is. We are between 35 and 36 years old. Some got married, others moved to another state, some even left the country, and there are those who don't even answer anymore. But from time to time, several of us meet up, and that day, after a long time, it all worked out well with almost the entire group of friends. The meeting was at Edgar's house, the same one where we had met so many times. Some of us hadn't seen each other for years. Between beers and anecdotes, we started to remember everything. The classes, the songs we listened to, the crazy teachers, everything. It was a very good night, and I spent it laughing. For a while, I forgot about everything I was carrying until the subject of a party in Cuernavaca came up. Stories that didn't seem so entertaining to me because everyone mentioned it as a memory of high school, but I hadn't gone. And I remember a comment from Javier that at first struck me as a mistake. He said it quickly. Remember when Moi suddenly showed up at the party, uncooperative and carrying nothing? He was no sooner late than everyone started laughing. He was referring to me. I didn't say anything. I thought they were talking about someone else who had gotten confused. But then someone else said, "Of course, with that car that barely ran, the one that you could hear for miles announcing that it was about to arrive. Do you remember that very well?" And he pointed at me. That's when I stopped them, when I said, "No, I think you're confusing me, but anyway, it sounds like your party was good." There was a slight, awkward silence, but then they laughed. They thought I was joking, that I was trying to be funny, but I insisted. No, really, when was that? I never went to Cuernavaca with you guys. I've never been to a party in Cuernavaca in my life. And that's when everyone started talking like, no. It was on the long weekend in 2008 that we all went in 2 cars, that the house belonged to a cousin of Irene's, that I arrived late when everyone was already pretty high, that Xavi was also running a lot because of how much they smoked. They were driving so badly that they blew my mind. Then I said, but nobody laughed. Everyone kept trying to convince me. I saw them one by one. They all said it with such confidence that I began to feel bad. But I remember that weekend perfectly. I was in Veracruz. My grandmother was seriously ill. My whole family had gathered there, and it wasn't just any trip. It was a pretty difficult time, one of those that never fades away. I told them that. I told them I had photos, messages, whatever they wanted, that I was in Veracruz at the time, not in Cuernavaca. But they insisted I was going crazy, that maybe I was the one who had smoked something, that I had gotten so drunk I didn't remember, but I don't even drink like that. I never have, especially not at that time. I was about to let it go. I thought maybe it was a joke they were all playing on me, I don't know, something they came up with. But a couple of hours later, just as we were about to leave, Irene approached me. I really liked her in high school. Nothing ever happened, but she always seemed special to me, and that memory was very nice. In fact, I remembered her more than the girlfriends I did have. That made me really nostalgic because I didn't think it was. And now, so many years later, she approached me with that same smile as before, but with a different look in her eyes. "You were there," she said. I swear I didn't answer her. It was a very beautiful night, at least for me. That's why I remember so much, Moy told me. I felt strange, as if they were talking to me about another life, another version of me. So she pulled out her cell phone, opened Facebook, went to her profile, to her old albums, to the ones from when we all uploaded 20 photos a day, and she said, "Look, you made me get back on Facebook after a long time, but look, there was the photo. Her, me, and several of my friends, hugging each other in warm clothing in a garden, all laughing. I was there in the middle with my arm around Irene, wearing a navy blue t-shirt I've never owned, holding a glass." I asked her when she had uploaded that. That same long weekend, the Sunday we got back, look, and she showed me the date of the post. February 1st, 2008. I was speechless. That day I was with my family in a hospital in Veracruz. I know it perfectly. I remember it perfectly, not only because of the pain of those days, but because there was no way I could miss a party. There was no way I could be in two places at once. And yet, the photo was there with my face, with my body, with my smile, with my friends. I didn't know what to say to her. She just hugged me and said, "I don't know why you deny it, but it doesn't matter." I haven't spoken to anyone about it again. I haven't seen that photo again. I deleted my Facebook a few years ago, but sometimes I look back on it and I don't know what's weirder. The image itself, or the absolute certainty I have that I was never there, that everyone is convinced except me, and that this other version of me who lived through that night doesn't belong to me. Hi, my name is Julian Breseco. I'm 22, and this is the first time I've written something for Stories at Night, although I've been listening to the podcast with my girlfriend for months. She was the one who insisted I send this because she says, it's the kind of story that could look good here. And the truth is, I don't know if it's paranormal or not, but it is the strangest thing that has ever happened to me. Every time I tell it, I notice how people stop what they were doing to pay attention, as if deep down they also feel that something about this isn't right, not blocked, as if it were really something supernatural. This happened to me a couple of years ago. When I was 20, I was still living with my parents in a quiet, safe neighborhood far from downtown, but too far from everything. That night, I went out with some friends. We were going to a party near downtown, and since we knew we were going to end up late, days before I asked my grandparents if I could stay the night at their house, which was a few blocks away. My grandparents have always been very kind to me. They said yes, that I should take my key and that they would lock the door in case I arrived after they went to sleep. I already knew I was going to be late, so I told them it was better not to wait for me. I went out, got lost with my friends, the night slipped by, and before I knew it, it was after 6 in the morning. I felt really sorry for it. It had never happened to me before, but I walked to my grandparents' house anyway. It was still a little dark. I arrived about half an hour later. I knocked carefully on the door, but it was already open, which told me they'd already woken up. I felt sorry for them because they were probably worried. They'd probably noticed I hadn't gotten to sleep. I went in and heard them chatting animatedly in the kitchen. I was grateful they weren't worried about me. They were serving coffee, but when they saw me come in, they froze, their expressions of horror still etched in my memory. Not like when you're surprised someone arrives unannounced. No, they were genuinely scared. My grandmother clutched her chest, and my grandfather said, "What are you doing here?" I freaked out. I told them I'd already told them I was going to stay the night there, that my parents had also reminded them just the day before. I asked them if they'd forgotten. My grandfather looked at me very seriously and answered, yes, they told us, but that's why we were waiting for you. That's why we didn't close the door last night until we went to sleep." "So what's wrong?" I said. "Here I am, I'm here." And that's when my grandmother said something I still have a hard time repeating. "Son, you already arrived last night?" I laughed. I thought it was a joke, but they weren't joking. They were completely serious, confused, and very nervous. They explained to me that around midnight they had heard me come in, that my grandfather saw me from the living room while watching TV when I went into the guest room. My grandmother even asked me from the kitchen if I wanted some dinner, and that I or that person who looked like me answered her from inside the room, "No, thanks, I'm just sleepy. I'm going to sleep." My grandfather even said he noticed I was wearing the same clothes I was standing there in hours later. The same jacket. I asked them if they were sure. They told me yes, that they not only saw him come in, but that in the morning, a little before I actually arrived, they had approached the bedroom door and asked him if he wanted some breakfast. From inside, they heard that I said, "I'll be right out." But just a few minutes later, I arrived. They didn't know what to think, and neither did I. I told them there was no way that was happening, really, that I stayed at the party until dawn, that I hadn't left before, that I didn't have a copy of me wandering around. So we went to the guest room together. You have no idea, community, the terror with which we walked there. Everything was as if someone had slept there, the dust, the moved bedspread, and something very strange. The bathroom door was ajar with steam still in it, as if the hot water had been on. I had a very strange feeling. I could feel that someone had been there. It's something very difficult to explain, but I felt it, and my grandfather noticed it too. We turned to look at each other. We checked everything. No one was there, nothing, just that room with signs that someone had spent the night there, as if I had done it, although I hadn't. And at that moment, and this could have been my imagination, but I heard in the distance the door of the house, the front door, as if someone had come out of there. We all remained silent for a long time, not knowing what to say. After that, nothing else happened. It wasn't repeated. No one disappeared. There were no more strange manifestations, just that. I remember that scene as part of a dream. Me watching them, my grandparents watching me, and that doubt stuck between the three of us. Who was that one who arrived before me? That one who arrived in the night. This happened to me a few months ago, community. And although some time has passed, I still don't know what to think. I have no way of explaining it, but I do know it was real because I was there, because I heard him. My name is Mauricio, and I live with my wife, Leslie. We're expecting our first baby. She's 7 months pregnant, and the truth is, we've had a good time. It's been a difficult process, but full of learning. Sometimes there are cravings, of course, but it's all normal, nothing one wouldn't be willing to do if you love the person you're building a family with. That night I'm going to tell you about, it was around 11:15 when Leslie told me she really craved some strawberries and cream. We didn't have anything sweet in the house, and I told her it was better to wait until tomorrow. But she insisted in that little voice she uses when she doesn't want anything else. She looked very tired, but happy. So I agreed. How could I say no? We live in a quiet neighborhood, but it gets lonely late at night. Even so, I got in the car to see if I could find anything open. I knew there was at least one 24-hour store about 10 minutes away. I looked for options on the map on my phone and connected it to the car, but I couldn't find anything closer. Anyway, I left it open on the dashboard screen and ventured out to search. As I was driving down a dark street, almost reaching the store, the map disappeared from my car screen. A call was coming in. It was her, my wife. I answered immediately, thinking she'd changed her mind. That maybe she didn't want anything anymore or had remembered something else. But as soon as I answered, I realized something wasn't right. The signal was very bad. I could barely hear her voice, like it was flickering, as if she weren't speaking directly to me. It was like she was thinking out loud, like she didn't know someone else was listening. Don't come back. Please, don't come back. Don't come back, Mauricio, whatever happens. Don't come back to the house. And then it cut off. The screen returned to the map. I felt scared, really scared and strangely uneasy. I turned the car around immediately. I didn't even think about waiting. I accelerated, heart pounding, mind racing. I didn't know if something had happened to her, if there had been a break-in. All I could think about was getting back to her. When I got home, the front door was closed. Everything was silent. For a moment, that scared me even more. But then I heard the television. She was sitting there on the couch, watching a movie. She smiled at me when she saw my face and the strawberries. She asked if I hadn't found anything. I didn't know what to say. I walked over, took the phone from her hands, and asked, "Why did you call me like that?" She looked confused, genuinely confused. She told me she hadn't called me, that she'd been watching the movie ever since I left. I asked her to open the call history because I didn't believe her. But there was nothing. No calls, no outgoing calls for hours. Nothing. I told her everything, how I heard her, what her voice sounded like, how it cut off. She went pale. You could see the fear in her face. She asked me to please not go out again, to lock everything, to go to sleep. She thought it was a sign or something. She told me it was probably just a bad dream, that I was tired. But she didn't say it with conviction. She said it like she was trying to convince herself. She went to the bathroom for a moment. I stayed in the kitchen, making some tea for the two of us. I needed to calm down. I was listening to the kettle heating the water when I heard 3 clear knocks on the front door. I froze. They were soft but firm, like someone knew we were there. A few seconds later, she came out of the bathroom and asked if I'd heard that too. I nodded. We slowly walked toward the hallway. From one of the front windows, we tried to look outside, but there was no one. Not a car on the street, not a sound. We waited several minutes, nothing. We secured the door, closed all the windows tightly, left 2 lamps on, and went upstairs to the bedroom. We didn't sleep that night. We just stayed there together, not talking much, staring at the closed door, listening in case something happened again. But nothing else happened, just that fear. That very real fear that didn't let go until the sun began to rise. We haven't heard anything since, and we're still waiting for this baby with all the hope in the world. At least now, we already have one very strange pregnancy story to tell. God bless you, community. Thank you for staying with us. We continue.